everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Zoomin In with Noell Tin, who is a member of the class of 1993. This has been a really fun way to engage with our graduates from a distance and also close up. And I'm sure today will be no different. Noell is a champion of civil rights. And before we dive in, I wanted to just mention and make you aware of Northeastern Law School's Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project, which is led by Professor Margaret Burnham. CRRJ conducts research and supports policy initiatives on anti-civil rights violence in the United States and other miscarriages of justice during the period of 1930 to 1970. CRRJ serves as a resource for scholars, policymakers, organizers involved in various initiatives seeking social justice for these crimes. Now a bit about Noell's background. Noell is managing partner of Tin, Fulton, Walker & Owen in Charlotte, North Carolina. Your firm handles a wide variety of work, but I'd say it's fair to say your work is comprised primarily in criminal defense, white-collar defense, civil rights and constitutional law, and appeals. You started the firm with one other person in 2002, and it's now grown to 12 attorneys, including one other Northeastern law grad, Margaret Arrington. Since he started practicing law in 1994, Noell has represented clients in over 40 North Carolina counties, 3 federal districts in North Carolina, as well as federal courts in New York, Florida, Virginia, and South Carolina. He's successfully defended clients in state and federal jury trials, secured impressive victories in the North Carolina Court of Appeals and the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. Noell has also successfully petitioned the United States Supreme Court and obtained summary reversals of the lower court decisions 3 times. Noell's cases have attracted media coverage by the Charlotte Observer, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, ABC News 2020, and 60 Minutes. In addition to trial work, a significant portion of Noell's practice involves representing people and businesses implicated in white-collar regulatory and criminal investigations. He is a fellow in the Litigation Council of America and Honorary Society for Trial Lawyers. He has served on 2 merit selection committees responsible for selecting finalists for United States magistrate judge positions in the Western District of North Carolina. Hi, Noell, welcome.
Hi, Mielle, how are you?
I'm good today, and I'm happy to be here with you and to be able to talk to you. I've worked with Noell a couple of times on reunion committees. He's come back to Boston frequently, and it's great to see you and to be able to spend some time with you today. So I'm going to dive into some questions. First, I'm going back a ways. Childhood question. I know, a ways. As a child or young teen, did you always want to be a lawyer?
I didn't have any specific goal. And so I really went to law school because I didn't know what else to do. And but I did think that it would be something I would like and enjoy, and it turned out to be true.
Definitely. Tell me about how you chose Northeastern Law and what was your favorite part of law school?
I chose Northeastern for the reasons a lot of people choose Northeastern. The progressive politics and the lack of letter grades were a big draw for me. I didn't think I needed that kind of the traditional law school structure. And so, what was the second part of the question?
What did you like most about law school?
What did I like most about law school? That's a good question. I think in retrospect, the whole co-op program was very good for me. That's where a lot of my learning happened.
What were a couple of your co-ops?
I worked for a judge on the Third Circuit, and I also worked for the Ferguson Stein firm, which was comprised of a lot of the lawyers I still work with today. So
that's great. It worked out. Yeah. Did you have a favorite professor or two when you were at Northeastern?
I think I had a professor that I learned the most from and I liked the best, and it was Claire Dalton. She taught, I don't even know if she's still on the faculty, but she taught a modern legal theory course that definitely had a pretty profound influence on the way I practice law even now. And she, you had all kinds of it was an introduction to different ways of looking at the law. And it really has helped me to be a much better advocate.
Were your co-ops in North Carolina, or were they all over?
Just the last one, when I came to Ferguson Stein, and it was, it just looked like a good thing to do, and it's just something to explore, which is, the good thing about the process is like, I didn't know anything about North Carolina and figured I'd check it out. And here I am 25 years later.
Remind me where you grew up.
Columbus, Ohio, Upper
Okay.
Arlington.
All right. What did you do? You touched on this a little bit. Immediately following law school, you graduated in 1993 when the economy was a little bit dire. What words of wisdom do you have for our current graduates and maybe some of our 2019s who might be looking for work?
Yeah, looking at what people are going through right now does remind me of what it was like when I came out. It was tough. The economy was difficult. People were having trouble finding jobs. All the things that I know people are going through right now. But what I remember the most is that after maybe a year, almost everybody had kind of found their way. And I look today and just about everybody found their way. And so I know this is difficult. It remains to be seen whether this is better or worse or the same as when I came out of law school. But if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, I expect that everyone's going to find their way now too.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, they delayed the bar exam by a while. So it's not in July, it's in September, I believe, at the end of September now. So even that is, different today.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they have a little bit more time to study, which could be good or bad, depending on how you look at it. But, there are some jobs that won't take you until after you've passed the bar exam. So that
Right.
also presents some issues. But it's good to hear you thrived after the early 90s and that you're doing what you're doing today. My next question is, clearly civil rights work and social justice work have been in the forefront of our news in the last 3 weeks. Criminal defense work is more important than ever. Describe your background in civil rights work and why you moved to Charlotte.
So I moved to Charlotte when my last co-op employer, Ferguson Stein, offered me a job. And that was a traditional civil rights firm. It was certainly the best known civil rights firm in the Southeast, maybe the country. They'd litigated literally more than a dozen cases in the US Supreme Court, lots on which we'd read about in law school. It was an incredible place. And so when I got offered a job there was really no question that I was going to take it. So I came down and just kind of eyes wide open type deal. And for the first couple of years, I was carrying the briefcase of the senior partner. I think he decided my briefcase carrying skills weren't so great, so they turned me loose to do criminal defense work on my own.
Wow.
And that turned out to be a pretty good fit.
So you learned a lot from that partner?
Yeah, it was James Ferguson. He's one of the best lawyers I've ever worked with, and he's still active today.
Do you call on him ever for advice or?
I haven't talked to him in a little bit, but we see each other around town from time to time, and we have a million people in common, including some of the people I practice with now.
Right. What inspired you to start your own firm? And that was in 2001. And what are some of the blessings and challenges as managing partner?
So I think I worked at Ferguson Stein for 5 years. I went to another small firm for a little over a year, and then I decided it was just time to go out on my own. The nice thing about my job, and I basically had the same law practice the whole time, is the independence. The downside is the responsibility. There's some level of administrative responsibility I have too. And so, as we've grown to accommodate everybody and for everybody to be happy and productive, you just have to deal with all the things that come with growth and management and learn how to navigate those. And there's no book you can read, right? I mean, it's just more of a situation as you learn as you go. And so far, so good.
What would you say are some of your strengths that make you a good managing partner?
I can make a decision. I'm reasonably good at listening. I think most people think that I've got their back. I'm a very loyal friend. I think that helps too. As for weaknesses, there probably aren't any. Just ask me.
That wasn't one of my questions, but listening is so important in every area right now, right? Listening, and that's overlooked a lot, I think.
Yeah.
So even with clients, coworkers, etc., we can't really listen too much. You've been in the South now nearly 30 years. I hate to say that out loud, but it looks like, if I do the math right, it's nearly 30 years. Are there signs that racial injustices are lessening in your area, would you say?
Whew, that's a complicated question. Well, there's not a lot to feel good about it right now. We've obviously got protests like the rest of the country. We have all kinds of tensions at every level. We don't have a lot of leadership coming from the government, at least what I would consider constructive leadership. And so, by that measure, things are pretty tough. But at another level, if you look at where this city was, and I'm in Charlotte, when I first got here, we have much greater diversity in leadership at all levels: judges, legislators, city council, county commission, very diverse. But at the same time, Charlotte has a problem with social mobility. The schools are resegregating to some degree. There's obviously tons of tension with the police department. So these issues that have been around for forever are still here. But I do think, if I had to say one thing that makes me feel good, it's that the younger generation is coming up. I think a lot of people that are the age I was when I graduated from Northeastern, they don't look at race the same way people in my age group do. They've grown up in a much more diverse environment, and I think going to desegregated schools is going to have a long-term profound impact on race relations. It's going to be for the better.
Good to hear. There's a little bit of positive signs, yeah. and we have faith in the next generation, right?
Absolutely. I do, seriously. Yeah.
I mean, some 17-year-olds are organizing and leading these protests. It was a 17-year-old in San Francisco that led an enormous protest last weekend. So they're definitely claiming their spot and taking the reins. So I love that. My next question is, tell me about, and a little bit in depth, maybe a case or two that has had the biggest impact on you and why.
Oh, wow. These are good questions. I think I did an innocence case that we won a few years ago, and maybe it's been more than a few years now. A guy named Kenny Cagoniera, who did 11 years for a murder that he didn't commit. And it was an interesting case because he and his co-defendants confessed, and they'd given false confessions to avoid the death penalty. But when I got involved, it was late in the case, and it was headed towards a hearing. And actually, the Duke Innocence Project had done the investigation. They'd done a phenomenal job. Yeah. So, I really hesitated to get involved in the case because Kenny was at the end of his sentence. He only had another year or two to go. And I thought, well, I'm going to put all this work in. It's clear that he didn't do it, but is an exoneration after you've done all these years really all that great? And the answer is, it is that great. I mean, there is just so much, there was so much meaning to it. And just to have the wrong righted in and of itself was profoundly meaningful. And so that really had a kind of a big impact on me. But it also, taking a step back, his trial counsel had advised him to plead guilty and had to testify at this trial. Well, he's a good friend of mine. He's one of the best lawyers I know. And he absolutely had no problem, no hesitation, explaining what went on at every step of the process. And it showed you there is so much nuance that goes on with criminal defense work in particular, but also client relations. That just when you think you've got it all figured out, something happens that shows you that, well, maybe this is a little different than what I thought it was.
Right. So an Innocence Project, a group would approach you and say, will you take this on? Is it like the movie Just Mercy and the book Just Mercy? Is it like that? I literally got goosebumps when you were talking about, changing his life and not having to live with that sentence for the rest of his life.
Yeah. It's been a while since I read Justice Mercy, and I didn't see the movie, but I read the book, and it's been a little bit. I'm trying to remember how the phone calls went. I mean, it was just basically, I got a call, and I really had to think about it. And there's a small number of lawyers that do these cases, and so it's a pretty small little group.
You were it. Is there another case that's really had a lot of meaning for you that you can think of?
Yeah, there's quite a few, and I'm just trying to distill it down to one that's. I did
be a more recent one if that's easiest.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I can tell you about a couple. In the fun category, I had a client a couple years ago who was charged under our city's dance hall ordinance, which was the vaguest thing I'd ever read in my life. And we did a little checking in, and it was only enforced against African Americans. I mean, just across the board. And basically, it said you have to have a license if you run a dance hall, but they defined dance hall as just a place that plays music and has room to dance. So I had some interns that summer, and I said, here's your mission. You're going to go out to all these places that have music and room to dance and bust a move and take a picture of yourself, and then you're going to testify about it. So we did this huge hearing on my summer associate, dancing all over town. And but the larger point was that there's tons of businesses that are not touched by the ordinance, and it was really selective prosecution, and the thing was vague and overbroad, and that getting that declared unconstitutional was fun. And it was good to see that you can still do things like that.
Right.
But in a more, what's really having an impact on me right now is all the COVID-19 litigation. All I'm doing right now is trying to get people out. All I'm trying to do right now is get people out of prison before they get the coronavirus. That's my entire practice this week. And
wow,
it is.
Are you getting lots of people reaching out to you about that?
Sure. Yeah. And the problem is that COVID-19 is spreading around the federal prison system at a rate that is astonishing, and nobody's prepared for it. People are completely isolated. They have no way to do all the things that we take for granted, like social distancing. There's some level of masks, but it's a really desperate situation for a lot of people. And to give you a sense of how hard it's been, I can get medical records very quickly from the Bureau of Prisons that show whether somebody's tested positive, but the prisons aren't telling people when they test positive as quickly as they're telling me. So I'm having to tell my clients that they've tested positive. I'm having to tell their families.
Wow.
And people are just really, scared. I mean, it's just that simple. And it's, seeing what's going on is very impactful.
I agree. And we've seen a lot of statistics where COVID has really impacted Black and brown people in a significant way, which is also just socially unjust. So we're seeing a lot of that. What motivates you to do the type of work that you do, and what has surprised you the most about your criminal defense work?
I think to really thrive as a criminal defense lawyer, you kind of have to have either a political orientation or a humanitarian orientation. I personally have both of those things, and so it's a good fit for me. When I did civil work, I didn't like fighting over money. It just didn't come naturally to me. That's obviously what a civil case often boils down to. Most surprising, that maybe how hard I still work. I've been telling people I've been working like a first-year associate all year, which is basically about right. But I still like it. You know, I still, this was the right thing for me. And it certainly has its, you know, there's good days and there's bad days and there's great days and there's terrible days. But
Yeah.
overall, yeah, this was the right thing for me to do.
It looks like you have a lot of joy.
Yeah, I think
Well,
so.
that's nice. What are your thoughts? This is a little bit of a loaded question. What are your thoughts on the Republican National Convention moving to Jacksonville?
Well, I think most people in Charlotte are pretty happy about that. Not everybody, because there is a business impact, and
Right.
so. But I think a lot of people were very worried about what the RNC would bring to Charlotte, and you know, you look at these social media posts by some of these extreme groups. A lot of people were worried about that. You know, a lot of people. Charlotte is a blue city, and Mecklenburg County is the county it's in. That's a blue county, and so a lot of people just didn't want to have the president here. It's more power to Jacksonville if they can accommodate what this president wants. Great, good luck. I don't think anybody here is ever thought there was any meaningful chance of having the RNC the way the president wants it.
And
So,
COVID, what is COVID like in Charlotte right now?
people have let their guard down. It's spreading. The numbers are going up. They're going to have to do something about it. And like you said, it's spreading much more rapidly through minority communities. And I don't know what all the reasons for that are, but my particular focus right now is the jail, as you might expect.
Yeah.
But nursing homes, construction sites, those are the places where you're seeing outbreaks.
Is your office virtual?
We've got a skeleton crew. I think right now we probably have 3 lawyers in the office and the receptionist. So most people are working from home.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I could only stay at home so many days, and I'm much more productive sitting at my desk. It goes a lot better that way. So basically, I come in wearing my mask and sit at my desk and shut myself in the office and send emails around to everybody.
Describe maybe a white collar case that you've had, and what is so interesting about that type of work. So you have a broad array of work that you do, but maybe a white collar case that you've tackled recently.
So I've got an environmental case right now with where I represent a public works director of a small town in Western North Carolina that's still in the investigation stage. And it's intellectually, it's challenging. And my client, I really like a lot. He's just a regular guy who got caught up in a situation. You know, I spent a lot of time representing the county manager of Buncombe County, which is Asheville, which is a couple hours west of here.
Okay.
And it was in a fairly major public corruption case. You know, there's a lot of documents these days. Everything's e-discovery. There's tons of information. That part I don't love. But for me, it all still kind of boils down to people liking my clients and trying to help them out. You know, the thing about criminal defense is every criminal case ends in the same place, jail. So helping somebody avoid jail is something I like, whether it's a white collar case or a blue collar case, or, you know, whatever. I think a lot of the underlying dynamics are the same in any kind of case.
That makes sense. Avoiding jail.
Yeah, see, I don't. There you go. That's why I like doing criminal defense, because I don't believe in jail.
Right. What else should our listeners know about the type of work that you do, or about you personally that makes you a good fit for this field? If someone's young and considering this work.
Well, I think that's a really good question. You have to, some people need a lot of structure, and some people like a lot of structure. This is better if you don't want or like, you know, just very rigid defined roles. And this is good if you like the scenery to change fairly often. This is good if you enjoy dealing with different kinds of people. I mean, literally right now, especially now in the age of COVID-19, I said to one of my partners yesterday, I said, everybody I'm dealing with right now in any context is completely on edge. And you have to be able, that's kind of where people are at in general. It's certainly where a lot of my clients are. And, that's kind of thing you might say, well, that sounds like it's got some headaches, but I might enjoy parts of it. Then yeah, you could give this a shot. Our broader practice, it also, I think a lot of my law partners would say is very meaningful. We won North Carolina's, I didn't personally, but we won North Carolina's marriage equality case.
Oh,
And and my neighborhood is half maybe LGBTQ, and it was so great to have your neighbors come out and be able to get married. And
that's phenomenal.
yeah, it was really, I've never been so proud of a case that I had no contribution to. It was neat.
You get to brag as managing partner.
That's right.
Absolutely. One of our grads argued that before the Supreme Court, right? Mary Bonato.
Yes.
So lots of legacies down to North Carolina as well. So that's good news. I visited you once in Charlotte, and I loved seeing your firm and a gorgeous historic house. Charlotte is just a beautiful city. I was devastated when I missed your annual porch party due to a previous commitment with the law school. Are you having an annually social distant porch party this year? Are there plans? Can you?
Everything's TBD. Everything, we're taking it one step at a time like everybody else. Hopefully we'll be able to do something. But
I understand. Lots TBD here as well, especially for the fall. So looking at other alternatives. Anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
No, just if there's some recent grads here, just keep your chin up, and it's going to work out. It really will.
What co-ops would you recommend for a recent grad?
That's a really good question.
Who would want to go into this type of work? Like what would be most helpful?
I do think small firms with good lawyers are always a good option. The pay probably won't be that great, but and I think judges are always a good option, especially federal judges.
That's great. Well, Noel, thank you for your time today and sharing your thoughts and some of your more exciting cases. We're proud that you've been on 60 Minutes and in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. All of that is really, really terrific. I'm glad you're getting some recognition for the really good work that you're doing in Charlotte.
Yeah, I think the case was on 60 Minutes. I think they cut my part out, but
I need to see a clip. Well, thanks for spending time with us today on Zoomin In, and it's good to see your face and that you're doing good work and helping during COVID and doing all kinds of great work. So we're proud of you, and thanks for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Good seeing you, Mielle.
Good to see you. Take care.
You too.